when I was bodybuilding, I made a lot of money in different ways, and I saved up money, and I was always coaching the whole time. So I had a pretty good, savings. And I mean, I spent when all this was said and done, attorneys, PIs, probation stuff, about $1.2 million.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is going to be part 2 of our interview with Armon Adibi. Of course, I'm joined by our RXMuscle staff psychotherapist, Lesley, Timbol, and Armon. Guys, thanks for coming back for part 2. And Armon, I got a lot of positive comments, text messages, PMs from people who really sympathize with what you went through.
Yeah, and I'm not one of the people that need, like, people feel sorry for me. I don't like that or sympathize, but if I can help, sharing a story, if it even helps like one person, like, I don't care, like, the negativity I get from it, or people like, oh, this is not, like, you're not the victim. Like, that doesn't bother me. Like, as long as I help a couple people out there not go through what I go through, that makes me feel good. And I got a lot of really good DMs, like, on IG and emails that people really like, hey, like, I've been through, like, not that, but something similar. And so it was, mainly positive. And I'm not doing this to play like, oh, I'm a poor victim. I mean, when you get in a relationship with somebody, you see red flags, and that's as a man, that's your, decision to stay in that, or even though if you're, distracted by other things, or get out of it. And, unfortunately, I made a bad decision, and people's always like, well, what did you do in the relationship? Well, relationships are toxic. Some of them are toxic. It was a toxic relationship. But when a woman's scorned, they'll go, like, in their eyes, you ruined their life. Okay. You were supposed to have a family, grow old together. And that's their emotions. Men and women have completely different emotions. And when you do that, you ruin their life. So they're going to try to do, well, the ones that are dysfunctional, the links that they will go. And this one, I never imagined someone could actually go to these links. And so, but they did.
Let me ask you a question, Lesley. After hearing Armon's story, and we're going to continue the story today and talk about the rest of it, but after hearing his story, does it surprise you by the reaction to his ex, or is that something that you see a lot, happen? Maybe not to that extent, but do you see a lot of that happen, like Armon said, with a woman scorn, say, and maybe she didn't quite like the way the whole situation, the whole scenario worked itself out?
Generally speaking, it does happen a lot. Women tend to be more emotional than men. This does not mean that men don't have emotions. It's just that women tend to articulate it a little bit more, actually quite a bit more. We can be very wordy, so on behalf of the female race. However, I'd like to say that there are different types of women out there, meaning different coping strategies. So if you're someone who is traditionally, and again, it depends on how the situation has unfolded, like as far as the communication between Armon and this lady, she was, there was a lot of red flags meaning that there were some very questionable things that were alerts to saying this is not a healthy relationship. Now, if you're in a healthy relationship, and even healthy relationships can break up, there will be one party that's a little bit more hurt than the other party, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go to these lengths. Yes, there can be crying, there can be angry words, but to go to this extent is usually a reflection of their mental status. meaning that they tend to have tendencies that could be diagnosable in the DSM-5.
Now, I think it's important just for people who maybe didn't see part one. You should go back and watch part one so you get an understanding of the whole story. But basically, Armon, his mom had passed, and he had gotten this woman pregnant. He moved in with her, and they had the baby, and things started going south. And Armon wasn't happy in the relationship. And once they broke up, she basically, well, I guess before they officially broke up, she kind of kidnapped Armon's child and took it. And now, where did we leave off, Armon? What point in the story was it?
It's like pre-trial stuff, and like,
okay.
So I'm on house arrest at this time. I have an ankle monitor on. The restrictions aren't bad.
Were you being drug tested at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Drug tested, randomly steroid tested. So how that works is the other party, if they want to steroid test you, they have to pay for it. If I'm dirty, I have to pay for it. If I'm not dirty, they have to pay for it. So,
did you get tested?
How many times?
Yeah.
So this happened in 2016. It's 2023. I've been tested about 5 or 6 times, but about 5. But people don't understand the testing. Like, oh, you can beat these urinalysis tests. Like, you can't. Like, these are. They had compounds on the list. I didn't even know what they were, and I failed the first test for equipoise and I took that over a year prior, and the metabolites were still in my system. So most steroids, the metabolites last a really long time, and so it's not like it's currently what's in there.
So did you have to pay for that test?
Yeah. And then the custody that attorney, she wrote in the order, you cannot take steroids, prescription or not. So she was telling me I had to come off my testosterone replacement. Oh, wow. And so I don't get like a little low. I bottom out. Like, I did get off because my attorney's like, I had a really the attorneys I was using at this time. I went through three sets of attorneys for both custody and criminal, and I'll talk about a little bit about those. But you have to really be careful who you pick for your attorney, because especially in criminal. So I was with the Shapiro law firm. The father was a custody attorney. The son was a criminal attorney, and they were a well-known in that county. Of course, you want to get attorneys usually with that county that deals with the judges and familiar. And so at first, they were like, I paid them a lot of money, and they felt like they were doing their job. And, the criminal attorney, he was like, they're really coming after you hard. And, I was like, I know that. And he had this, and then eventually towards the end, he kind of like started, he was going to hand me over. Like, if you guys know what that is, it's like, hey, this case is too difficult. I'll hand this guy over to you. Basically, just throw me to the wolves. You're guilty.
What was so difficult about the case, and how much money did you pay this guy for him to hand you off?
It was so difficult because there was no evidence. It was just it was just on a personal level too. So it wasn't just, we're charging, we're doing things by the book. She made friends, well, more than friends with the detective. She was good friends with the prosecutor. So the prosecutor got put on a different case. Like how they switch prosecutors, and so she's like, no, I want to stay on this case. So she told him no, I want to stay on this case. I've been working on it. And her and the prosecutor became really close friends too. And so it was a personal vendetta too. And she knew my last attorney. She knew both the attorneys, but she's like, no, he's a bad guy. I'm going to bury him. And they're like, why are you so invested? Why aren't you leaving this alone? And that's not normal, because to keep on a case like that, most prosecutors would just move on and to their new cases and all that. But all this was very personal. So he just there's politics. So he's just like, yeah, I'm going to have to deal in the future with my my clients being prosecuted by this lady again. And they do that. They're like, hey, I'll give you this guy, hand him over, and then the next couple go easy on mine. So people in the criminal, that's in it know how that kind of works. And
all the money that you pay. What happens to all the money that you paid the guy?
you piss it away. It's gone.
Oh.
Like, so how much did you lose?
With this firm,
Yeah.
about 60,000.
Wow. That's a lot of money. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a lot of money.
so
And they did nothing. They basically did nothing for you.
no, the father, said, "Hey, you have to come off testosterone." I was like, "I can't. It's my health." So I did come off, and I passed the test, and then got my daughter back. But my testosterone levels were 17.
Oh,
I mean, I couldn't even I was, extremely depressed,
right.
fatigued.
Your daughter back. Did you have custody, or did you just have like visitation?
So I started with supervised visitations, and then I got her back. Like, she was starting to stay at my house again, like first, third, fifth weekends, like normal. So she was staying with me again, and I was happier than ever. And we still haven't gone to trial.
Remind us again, where was the wife hiding? Your ex? Where was she hiding your daughter at the time? When she kidnapped her?
She was in like women's shelter place.
Oh, okay.
So what they do, a lot of them, they'll put you just like in an apartment, like with a roommate, and I don't know the full story, but what she did, because I had to take a psych evaluation. The judge ordered me to take a psych evaluation, and I had to pay for my own, which was like $2,800. And then for her to take one, I had to pay for it also. So if I wanted her to take one, which of course I did because I knew something was really wrong, I didn't know if I was going to pick it up or not.
You doing psych evaluations?
You're cutting out a little bit when you first start talking.
Oh, I said Lesley should be she's in the wrong psych business. She should be doing psych evaluations for criminal cases.
Yeah, so it's like 8 hours long, like 6 to 8 hours long. You go do it, and I did mine, and then she did hers. Mine came back with so I was honest. I'm not gonna lie about certain things in my life. So mine came back with a little anger issues. Okay, I can admit that. I'm a little short tempered. I've been over my life. I'm way better than I was before, 5, 10, 15, whatever years ago. But hers came back that my counselor had to explain it to me because those evaluations are hard to read. If you get it, you don't really know what you're looking at. So she basically interpreted it, says this girl basically, loves the attention, no matter if it's positive or negative. She can't really differentiate the two as long as she's getting attention. I was like, she's like, no, you're not going to understand because you're not her. And she's like, in her eyes, like, you ruined her life. And this girl, I wouldn't be surprised down the road if she actually thought that she could get back together with you. I'm like, there's no way. She's like, you don't understand. Like, because my counselor had to go to trial too and see this girl on the stand, like, get up there and talk and just tell all the nonsense. And she was a very good counselor. And she was the one appointed by the court, so she wasn't like one I picked. And I think our third session, she looks at me, she's like, "I believe you 100%." And she's like, and she wasn't one of those to, kind of, BS. And so she really helped a lot going through the whole thing. And her psych evaluation was pretty much like, she's still connected to you because you have a daughter together. Like, if I look at my daughter, I just see myself. My daughter looks like me more than her. Like, people will go everywhere like, "Oh my gosh, your daughter looks so much like you." So if I look at my daughter, I don't see like, "Oh, I made this beautiful baby with this woman." I just see like, this is my daughter. So in her eyes, like, she sees like, "Hey, this is still a part of, him." So my counselor was trying to just explain it to me, like, she still has a connection to you forever because of this child, and which for me, that's a nightmare. But to her, that satisfies her enough to just,
So, Lesley, maybe am I reading this wrong? It seems as though like the ex still wanted to be with him, and that if he would have said, "Hey, I'll take you back," she probably would have dropped all the charges. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yes. Here's the thing. They're in a different type of reality, and it's that, I can see that attention-seeking behavior. It's kind of I want feedback, regardless of what that feedback is, because it means you're paying attention to me, I'm worthwhile. That's where she gets her self-esteem. I'm not saying this is healthy for anyone watching this. I'm just trying to explain it. So yeah, if all of a sudden you decided to give her attention, yeah, the charges would go away.
And so what, when I was out on bond, I think the strategy was to have me violate my bond so that it wasn't going to even make it to trial, right? So this is just like just a few of the things I would have to deal with. I mean, let's say I would go to my daughter's school to pick her up, like let's say on Fridays, and then I would have her for the weekend, because that's how we would do it. We would use like an adventure play care, like the play places. She would drop off, I would pick up. I would always record it because she was trying to say I was following her, trying to find out where she lives, and so I'm like, I don't want to come anywhere near this lady. I'm terrified of her. And so the school one time, I showed up at court, and my attorney's like, they're trying to do a revocation date of your probation and bond. I'm like, for what? They're like, they're saying you waited across the street from the school and followed them. And I'm like, he's like, did you? I'm like, no, of course not. He goes, okay, well, they're trying to, so we have to go in front of the judge. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went in front of the judge, and I'm like, no, they didn't revoke it, but he's like, go to the school, because it was kind of like there was another date to kind of follow up with that. So I went to the school, and I was like, hey, your cameras, how far does it hit across the street? They're like, oh, it hits like this. So we got the footage where they came and picked up my daughter. She came and picked up my daughter, and then pulled out and started going in a little red Toyota, like this big of cars, went out behind them. And I have an SUV. So that footage right there, I gave to my attorney, they handed over, and they were like, we thought it was someone else. Like, no, like they literally just lied and were trying to get me revoked, just saying that kind of stuff. And sometimes they will revoke you just by the word. Obviously, I got these charges just by their word. So I was having to deal with that kind of stuff constantly. She would be like, Daddy, my daughter would be like, Daddy bad? I'm like, who told you Daddy bad? It's like, Mommy. And I'm like, well, do you think Daddy's bad? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, if Daddy's not bad then. And so I had to keep my mouth shut, because I wasn't going to play that sick game with her, because that only hurts the child. And so I'd go to my counselor, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like she's telling my daughter I'm bad and this. And she's like, you did the right thing. Say, do you think she's like, you did the perfect thing I would have told you to do. Because she kind of prepped me on this kind of stuff anyway. She's like, this girl is going to try to brainwash your daughter. And it still goes on. I mean, this has been since 2016, and I'm still having to deal with it. Like this summer, for instance, I was seeing her at school, and then during the week too. And then, so this summer, the times I was supposed to see her or like talk to her, or communicate with her, there's an app called like Our Family Wizard, because we don't speak through text at all. We have no communication, which I love. I like it like that. And so I sent a message through the app saying we need to set up times to, for me to see my daughter. And she's like, seek your legal counsel. And I'm like, and I sent her the order of the times I'm supposed to see my daughter, and she just never even read that thing. She just leaves it unread because she's playing a game. Because that's a violation of the court order. But what I would have to do is go to my attorney, pay him probably about 10 grand to file another. And then it would take about 3 months at least to get into court. And then, the judge would be like, okay, well, I mean, this judge is, obviously in her favor for, the custody. And it's just like, I asked the judge one day, like, I'm like, how are you, like, and my attorney's like, no, stop. I'm like, but I'm like, how is this happening? Like, do you not, like, we have all these texts, she's admitting to this and this and this, and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And, I just, I kind of realized I'm just going to have a relationship with her. It's probably just going to be later on in her life. That's when we're going to really get close. And it's sad because, she has a brother. He, when they're around each other, just hugging on each other, they love each other. And then you know, I try to talk to my daughters like, yeah, eventually you'll be back with me and all this. And she just looks sad. And I have no clue what the mom's telling her, but it's not good stuff because, you know.
How old is your daughter now?
She's 8.
Yeah, she's a little older than my son. Yeah, that's a tough nut. What, Lesley? What kind of advice do you give someone like Armon if they come to you with this situation? I mean, it's like a no-win scenario, really. I mean,
if you give someone enough rope, they're going to hang themselves. So what I mean by that is you want her to continue being the bitch she is, because that behavior will not change. That kind of controlling behavior will continue. And not that you want your daughter to go through that, but when your daughter sees her mom the way she really is, it's going to be a lot easier to have a relationship with her, because regardless of all the garbage she's been brainwashed with, that's going to be a null issue later on.
Yeah. Right. You know, and some of the things, you know, like before all this, the ex, I told her through like my attorney and stuff, like, listen, I've exhausted I spent a lot of money. I don't even want to say how much through this whole thing. And I lost everything. I mean, I even had to sell both of my cars, and I had a spare car at my dad's house that I drove in high school. It was just still there, just like sitting there. And I had to drive that until I got back on my feet. You know, I had 100 something K in the bank for my daughter's fund for like college, and me and my dad, and we were putting stuff in there for my daughter. Like, so I just had over 100K in there. I had to go. I'm like, I'm literally about to tap into, you know, my daughter's, like, your daughter too, college fund to pay for all this nonsense. I'm like, what is the point of this? And I had to go blow through all that money too. So, I mean, it's not a, you know, like, I can take it. Like, I'm tough, whatever. I've been through a lot of, you know, hard stuff in my life before, but like, you're hurting your own daughter. You're going to have to, your daughter's going to have questions one day when she's mature enough. Why did you do this? You know, like, what, I have videos, like, I also made logs too, like, over, like, when she was gone and kidnapped and all that. Every few weeks I would make a video talking to my daughter. Hey baby, it's been 2 months since you're gone. Daddy has done this, this, and this. I'm trying harder than ever. I'm driving around just hours a day. I don't know what to do. So when she's older, I have this like whole folder of videos I made for her. Just like, hey, look,
like a diary,
this is what I was doing this whole time. No matter what your mom has told you about me, whether it's like, I didn't want you, or, you know, I wasn't trying, like, this is like me pouring my heart out on these videos so you to watch when you're old enough to understand everything. So, I have that for her. So
where did the drug use come in? Because you had gotten, and we've talked about this on other shows, you had gotten addicted to the painkillers they were giving you, and you went through that whole thing. How did this coincide with what was going on with your daughter?
It was after she was kidnapped. So I had the surgeries, and then through the trial process. So this happened back in 2016. Maybe people might think this is current. No, this is 2016. Yeah. We didn't go to trial until 2018. I mean, you know, if you've been looking at, I mean, I was looking at, you know, 30, 40 years in prison. So
what was the crime they were accusing you of?
3 ag assaults, deadly weapons. So they each hold, like, I think like 5 to 40 for each offense.
Right.
So, I mean, there's 3 different convictions for each different supposedly the weapons I supposedly used. Yeah. And so, yeah. So that's when it happened. It was all through prescriptions through the doctor, because emotionally, of course, I wasn't okay. So, and then I am in chronic pain. I do have herniated disc in my neck and back, and I was going to pain management and doing it all right. But they were prescribing me a lot. And I had no clue about like how bad the withdrawal would actually be. And then, you know, I would talk it over with my wife. I never hid anything from anyone. I wasn't getting it illegally. It was all through the doctor, but they were giving me.
This was your current wife, the new woman you met. You don't just.
I've only had, yeah, I never had been married before.
Yeah.
So, she's like, just, I don't know if it's a good idea for you to come off or try to go through that process now while you're going through all of this. And it wouldn't have been. And, I would talk about it with my counselor too. She's like, well, I would probably wait till after everything's done with to try to go through that. Cause I tried to come off before and go into a detox, and I got back out. I couldn't even physically, function, like, get up out of bed, just sick. When I eventually, got off all this stuff, I was in bed for like 3 months, just literally emotionally not okay. Physically, I could barely, I was so weak and exhausted. And, the opiate withdrawal, the first week and a half is really bad, where you're just like literally going through living hell. I don't know anything. That's why when people get on pain meds, I say, I'd rather go through whatever kind of pain, if I had to go back in time, than ever go through those withdrawals again. Nothing can match that.
I tell people, I've had my surgeries, I had my shoulder replacements done, and just being on, like, for the first one, I think I took pain meds for like a week, and just coming off for a week, I felt so terrible the week after. Not like I didn't have cravings to do the pain meds. I just felt like anxiety, and you just don't feel, you want to sleep a lot. It's like you just don't feel good. And when I had the other shoulder done, as soon as they had a nerve block on me for 3 days or 2 days, as soon as they took it off, I didn't even take one pain med. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't in any pain. I mean, I took some Tylenol at night, maybe a few days, and it was so much better. So don't let anyone tell you, even a week on pain meds, you're going to get somewhat addicted to them, and you're going to have withdrawal symptoms when you come off it. I can't even imagine what coming off of like serious oxycodone, OxyContin, for like months at a time must be like. It's got to be brutal,
I mean, it was the first time in my life I felt defeated. I never was in a position that I felt I can't do something in my life. I was always that strong when I could do anything I want to. And I would just like look in the mirror, literally like just like crying, and like, why can't I what do I do? I can't beat this. And I literally tried everything I could. I mean, I did detoxes. I went and did a rapid detox, which that almost killed me. It's where they put you under and with propofol about 6 hours, and then they inject you with to make you withdraw while you're under propofol. They didn't give me enough propofol. I aspirated. I got pneumonia. They took me back to my room after the procedure. I was telling my wife, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. They checked my oxygen. It was like 79 or something like that, and straight to the ICU. My lungs were completely whited out, like completely. And they were really, really worried. And I was lucky. My wife is, a doctor, because they were, that hospital they were at, I mean, has the worst reviews. The ICU, I think I was like the second only other person in there. They didn't want to work. It was bad. And I stayed there 2.5 weeks. And all this stuff I'm paying, like that procedure was $12,000. And so I'm paying all this money. I'm wanting to get off so bad. I did Ibogaine twice. I told that story on another thing we talked about. And, first of all, my advice to people is take the medicine 3 to 7 days and get off. I don't care how much pain you are in after that week mark, it's just going to get harder and harder and harder to get off. And then your brain, like I took Oxy before, and people was like, how do you like that stuff? I was like, yeah, it used to make me sick too. When I took it before, I threw up. It made me feel sick. I was like, how does anybody like this stuff? But once your body gets accustomed to it, it's like it's like a tree branch, and your brain just keeps growing, and you need more and more and more. And it gave me energy. It didn't make me, everybody reacts differently. I was energized on it. I could go, at this time I was bouncing too. I started bouncing again too, because I needed money. So I was bouncing almost every night, because I moved back into the Deep Ellum area, where it's just all clubs and bars there. Right. So it gave me enough energy so I could train people all day. And I never once, even though I lost everything. I mean, I was at a point where I couldn't even afford to pay rent or anything. Luckily, my dad was helping me out with, my mortgage. And then I said, I would pay you back. And then he's not wealthy. So I was like, I'm not going to be those people that's going to start a GoFundMe or beg for money. My pride, I'm too prideful to do that. I'm going to handle this like a man and work my butt off. So I was training people all day, and then I was bouncing at night.
Let me ask Lesley a question. Lesley, there's two aspects to stopping pain meds or even being on pain meds. One is the physical withdrawal, which is usually about a week, of uncomfortableness. It's really 72 hours of terribleness, and then it's another maybe 3 or 4 days of not so good stuff. And then the withdrawal becomes emotional or psychological, as I like to say, because all the pain that you've been suppressing, and I'm not just talking about physical pain, I'm talking about emotional pain, because obviously Armon went through a lot of emotional pain and was still going through it at the time, was being masked. Now you take away these pain meds and all that emotion just flies out of you. Do you think that was what his biggest problem was, why he just couldn't kick them, because the emotional pain was too much?
This is the thing. The power of our emotions can rule us, and it can make such a difference how we frame it and interpret things, but we can't even think straight if we're feeling overwhelmed. Now, are there strategies that can be done? Yes. And it's definitely helpful to have a professional with you. It's too bad they don't have more professionals in the hospital to help people when they are coming off, and then even doing follow-up visits when people are being released. But that's such a heavy component, Dave. And yeah, so I mean, the thing is that here's the thing, dealing with tough situations, hard situations is bad enough. But sometimes we can choose to get distracted. When you go off a pain medication, when you've been on it for a long period of time, you don't get a choice. It's shoved in your face. So whether they be triggers, whether they be nightmares, you can have, like sometimes people do what we call daydreaming. So we're not sleeping, but you have those flashbacks. So it's very traumatizing because we're forced to deal with emotions we're not prepared for. And a lot of it's, we get to segment how we deal with certain emotions. But when you're off pain meds, it's like, no, we're throwing the whole bucket at you. Good luck.
Yep.
And I was on an extremely high amount too. It wasn't like a few a day, because I had pain medicine saved up because I was getting prescribed oxys for the past 15 years through pain management. I just never took them. So I had like a medicine cabinet at home where eventually they would ask me, how much are you taking? And I would tell them, they're like, no, are you sure? Like that milligram? Like, no. They're like, we've never had somebody take that much. I'm like, well, you do now. So, and I'll tell you, like, I was at rock bottom, but I was good at, I was still training people. I was still, balancing. I wasn't like poor me. Like I didn't ask my friends for money. My friends didn't even know I was, not okay for money, because when I was bodybuilding, I made a lot of money in different ways, and I saved up money, and I was always coaching the whole time. So I had a pretty good, savings. And I mean, I spent, when all this was said and done, attorneys, PIs, probation stuff, about $1.2 million. And
God, wow. What a waste of money, right?
And it blows my mind because, that money I had, and I was like, I'm good. I'm going to get the best attorneys and and before you know it, like that money's gone. Like that's not a lot of money, especially when you get involved in the legal system.
Right. You pay someone $50,000, you think that's going to cover the whole nut, and then you find out that you have to switch attorneys, and that $50,000 is nothing now. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. But I think the biggest problem was with the pain meds was that they were really getting you through all the emotions because they were masking them, and then it just unleashed it. I mean, when I used Nubane back in the day, that was the big drug back in the 90s, and I stopped it. The physical withdrawal was a pain in the ass, for a couple of days. It was like uncomfortable, and I had used it for like 2 years. But the emotional withdrawal was terrible. I mean, all of a sudden, all the things and it wasn't just things that I wasn't even conscious of it. Like I didn't even think about it. I had never really dealt with the death of my mother when I was 14, and all this stuff just reared its head like Lesley said, all at one time. and it was overwhelming. It was like, oh my God. Like I thought that, you know, the little bit of nauseousness, you know, was going to be the big deal coming off the Nuvain. That wasn't it at all, because, you know, we're bodybuilders. We could deal with a little discomfort and pain. That doesn't affect us. I was still going to the gym and working out and doing everything, but the emotional, oh my God. So I can only imagine what you must have been going through, Armon, because you not only did you lose your mom, but you also were dealing with the fact that you didn't have your daughter, and they wanted to put you in jail. I mean, it's like, how much more can they throw on your plate? I don't know how you did it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the emotional part was unreal. My wife was going to work every morning, and especially when like I said, the first 3 months I was in bed, and I would literally just wake up and be crying, and I didn't know why, and I couldn't stop, because brain chemistry. I had a lot of friends. I had a few friends that they got through it. That, you know, they got clean from the pain meds and all that, and they said emotionally it's going to take you a while to get through, like, for your brain to get back to normal, probably a couple years. And I would say about a year and a half it took for my brain to kind of get back to where I felt like my old self. I still, I mean, the counselor says I have PTSD. I mean, I do have nightmares literally every night still. Every night. I mean, it's rare if I go a night without nightmares. That's why my sleep's so poor. And I got another sleep study to set up, because my sleep apnea is horrible. I'm getting 2 to 3 hours a night. But, you know, it was just a lot of stuff during that time. It wasn't only that. The other girls during this time, like, I won't go too far into, I mean, it's too much to go through, but this one girl that was kind of helping me out when I was injured during this time, before I met my current wife. I was telling her that, you know, I didn't want to hang out with her anymore. She was just stressing me out. And in person, she was the sweetest, nicest girl, right? But on text messages, she was like a demon. I'm like, who is this person? So that summer, she went to she was from, I think, Turkey or somewhere in the Middle East, and she was going to get a bunch of gear for one of my buddies, and it was like, you know, $2 a bottle, and she did. And I was like, I'm not dealing with that at all. It's between you and them. And then she got mad at me one night, and there was a bonfire, and it was all the gear, and she videotaped herself throwing all the gear in this bonfire. And these were like the crazy women. And then I was getting text messages. Like, one day I got literally over 500 texts from all different fake numbers, right? It was like, kill yourself, you're worthless, this. I didn't think it was my ex. I thought it was, I kind of narrowed it down to a few people. And unfortunately, I had to go to the police, that county I was dealing with at the time, because it wouldn't stop, the harassment. And they were tracing it. Well, the detective was friends with the other one. He wasn't doing his job. So I had to call internal affairs and say, listen, they're being unfair. They're not working on my case because he's friends with the other attorney. So they traced it, and then they called back the next day, and he's like, yes, Mr. DB, I found the number, blah, blah, blah. And so they called her in, this girl. I'm not going to say her name, but they interviewed her, and they were trying. So after the interview, like, she called me. She's like, they think it's me, Armon. I played dumb, right? So I was like, was it you? Like, come over and talk to me. So what they try to do to her, they're like, he can press charges on you, and it's like a Class B misdemeanor. It was like harassment by electronics or something like that. And they were trying to get her to turn on me, and they she said a counselor came in there, like someone for abused women, and they're like, how many times did Armon hit you? She's like, what? Hit me? They're like, how many times did he force give you drugs? She's like, what are you talking about? Like, nothing. And so my attorney's like, do not press charges on her, because
Exactly.
That's just the girl that's going to come to court and be happy to say, yeah, he beat me up too. Because, like I said, this detective contacted, it was personal, like how far he went. He contacted, you know, I think 7 or 8 different girls from my past and asked them, hey, do you want to, like, come to court and say A, B, and C to bury this guy? And
Lesley, I think my take-home message, I don't know if you're getting the same take-home message, that Armon's relationships were probably ruined him.
Well, I was going to
Everything's
say,
woman
if you didn't
related.
find the wife that you
Thank
currently
God you
have,
have
I
your
would
wife.
want to
Yeah,
basically
exactly. I mean, holy
screen your
mackerel.
girlfriends moving forward. But you have a good wife now, so you're good.
You know,
Thank God he does. Yeah.
you know, when you're bodybuilding, people are like, "Oh, well, it's your fault. You were seeing all those women." Like, I never claimed I was a saint. Yeah, I was seeing a lot of women, and any guy would do that if they could, like at that age or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so I always tell people it's not hard to get a girl. It's hard to get rid of them. Like when it's time, like things aren't working out, like it's hard to get rid of them. Like, you know, it was for me. They won't go away. Like, and you know how girls are. That, you know, if you're telling them no, they want you more. And so, like, no, I'm not playing a game. I really want to separate.
You have to get them to leave on their own. This way, it's their idea. You know, Armon.
Yeah. So, you know, that's what I did during that time I was dating. I had to feel like make the girls like, you know, you're just too good for me. It's not working out, because I didn't want any more girls like mad at me like that. I had to make them feel like they were breaking up with me. I'm like, you know, and I'm just
That's a
going
line
through
I
one.
tell a lot of my male clients to get rid of their girlfriends. So yeah, that's a great line.
How did the trial? Give us how did this whole trial wrap up, and what was the
Okay.
final result?
Mhm.
So like going into trial, like it, you know, it was tough. I had to wait 2 years. So trial starts, and the plea bargain is 15 years prison. Wasn't probation, and they usually come off it right before trial, like, you know, whatever. So
Would you have
the
taken a
jury
plea
selects.
bargain? Would you have
Huh?
taken a plea? Would you have taken a plea for just like a misdemeanor?
Let me get through real quick. So,
All right.
they do like the jury selection. That took a whole day. I mean, stuff is crazy. Like a big trial like this, you know, and I had my female attorney, and she brought on a male attorney, and they were working hours and hours and hours. And they were like, yeah, that Shapiro law firm was turning you over. And she goes, that's crazy, because that's a good law firm, and I know him well. She goes, he didn't do any work at all, because when I had to switch attorneys, I switched 3 weeks before trial. And then my last attorney, she pushed the trial off another like 7 months so she could prep. She's like, Armon, he was turning you over. I was like, yeah, I told you he was. She's like, he was literally going in there with nothing and just going to let you just like bury you. You're going to get 20 years. I was like, I know. That's why I came to you and hired you. So the first person they put on the stand was the detective, right? They buried him. So he was so used to coming to my custody cases and saying stuff on the stand, like, you know, he abused her, or whatever crazy stuff he had to say. And it was really personal between us. I mean, he would grin at me, and we were mouthing stuff to each other. It was like so personal. I would come out of the courtroom, and there would be like 8 cops trying to like intimidate me. You know, like he got people to do that. So he on the stand. So when they did the search warrant in my house, they let her come along and go in my house and literally take whatever she wanted to. So she took, it was really effed up what she did. So my daughter's room, it still had all my daughter's stuff in there. All her stuff, I had my friend pack, because I was injured going through I had all her stuff packed neatly in the garage, because I didn't want them to say, okay, well, he destroyed her property. But she came in and took everything out of my daughter's room, except the letters on the wall that said her name, just so I'd go home and see that.
Right.
And like they wiped my house out. She took a bunch of cash I had there, and it was like whatever. And so he's like, my attorney's like, so you're tampering with the evidence. You let the victims come along with search warrants. So he got tore up, and he was like, he didn't even know what to say. And it was really satisfying seeing that, because this guy thought he was going to pull the same stuff he did in the other. So he was up there about 30 minutes, and I got my money's worth for paying this law firm to what they did. So the next up was going to be my ex. So we had all our text messages ever. Like the days she said I did A, B, and C, I had those dates, our text messages all day. And they were normal text messages. And it didn't even line up to where we were even together at those times or dates. Because if you're making accusations on someone, and you got to remember, she made these accusations 6 months after the fact, when I filed for custody of my daughter. That's
Right.
when she made these. It wasn't like, you know, so we had a break for lunch. So we went to lunch, and then my attorney called me. She's like, they're offering probation. She's like, come back, let's talk quick. And I'm like telling my family, I'm not taking probation. I'm not. So we get in there and we're all talking, and she's like, supposedly the assistant DA is not happy with this. He came on and thought there was real evidence, like that they were going to put you away the way they portrayed you to everybody. And so even at one time, the judge is like, they're like, what evidence do you have? And they're like, well, and the judge was just like, okay. Like this judge was like, why the F are y'all here? We're like, and so we talked, and they were offering 10 years probation, felony probation. And my attorney was like, listen, we could put her on the stand and we're going to tear her up like 100%. She's like, but they're offering probation. She's like, if you get convicted, you're going to get a minimum of 10 years. Even if this jury doesn't think you were physically abusive, like just the name calling back and forth was like they're going to give you 10 years. In my experience, she's like, I would take the probation. And we were in there for an hour, and then finally back and forth, they went down to 5 years probation. She's like, Armon, take this. You have your son. He's going to be born in 3 months. Why chance it? And then you're sitting in prison for 10 years. She's like, they're going to put you of the worst with violent criminals, rapists, killers. And why even chance that? You're a good guy. You can do the probation. And I was like, man, it's a hard pill to swallow, because that's admitting that's how they get everybody. And my family was like,
yeah, they just want the conviction. That's all. Yeah.
My family was like, please just take it, or please take it. We think it's the best idea. And it went against everything I believed in. But, taking that chance is horrifying, because you're in prison for 10 years. Like, all I had to do was say yes to this probation.
Yeah, right.
So did that, whatever, go down to the, after court. So it was over, it was done with. I had to hear like the victims' testimonies, like they get up and they can talk to you, like blah, blah, blah. Like it was insane. So I think what she did was, at these women's shelters, all the real people that was there that were actually abused, which is horrific, domestic abuse. She got a little bit of each person's story and made it like her. So she felt like she was a part of these girls and had a connection with them, when all along she's a fraud. Like, she was never abused. And so I had to hear all this. My attorney said, just turn your seat and turn it all the way to the back. So and that made her so mad. And so I just sat there the whole time while her mom got up, her aunt got up, and it was just like, we were there for like another 2.5 hours, just hearing them talk about how I ruined their life and all this crazy stuff. She had it all typed up, like, it was like she's been waiting for this day forever. It was crazy. And so while I was downstairs going through the probation stuff, I had a PI outside watching the parking lot and all that. They left, and the detective and her were holding hands, hand in hand, leaving the courtroom, hugging on each other, like looked like they were kissing too, like on the side, hugging each other, embracing each other, and then getting in each other's car, or she got in with a car with her family, and so they were together. And I'm like, this is crazy that this is even happening. But it's such a small county, a lot of stuff gets away. That's why I'm like, people, before you move to this.
Yeah. I thought you had, Armon, I thought you had the private investigator already had identified that they were in a relationship, didn't they?
Yeah.
So why didn't that come out in court? Why didn't your attorney ask him about that?
They said, you need I was like, what else proof do I need? And that was brought up and all that. They asked her, are you having a relationship? Of course, she says no. We have, pictures that are showing you're all holding each other. What's all that? Oh, I'm protecting her because she's so scared to come into court. She's trembling. And so this wouldn't fly in like a big county. They would have actually investigated this guy. So what's interesting, after trial, my attorney calls me 2 weeks after. She's like, hey, I have some interesting news. And she acted completely different because I'm not her client anymore. Right. And she was like, the assistant DA quit his job 2 days after your trial. He called me and said, I'm not working for a county that's trying to put innocent people in prison. He was so disgusted because, the young guy, they're also all gung-ho. I'm ready to put bad guys away. but they don't understand how corrupt the legal system is. And then the prosecutor, which was my ex's little buddy taking this the whole time, she got fired 6 months later from the county for taking on another similar case where there's no evidence that she's getting like personally involved with these victims. And I was like, "Is there anything we can do?" She's like, "No, it's done. You took the plea." And I'm like, "I wish this all was come to light before." She was like, "Yeah, but just live your life, move on." And so and I have. And
was that a felony conviction, or is that
yeah,
that sucks. Yeah, you got a felony for no
that's
reason.
why it was so hard to take that.
Yeah.
But that chance is just terrifying. And when people say,
Sure.
"I would never take that," but when you're put in that situation, it took an hour for my attorney and my family to really convince me, because she's like, "It's hard to read, these top attorneys, they can read people." I was like, it was really, she's like, "This is a hard jury to read." And they in Collin County is a white county, like mostly upper class white. And they also were trying to portray me in a way as like a terrorist too, since I'm half Middle Eastern.
Oh my God.
They even took away my passport, like going through trial, because I was going to take my child to Iran and leave.
It's not really funny, but in hindsight, it's funny.
I have to laugh about it now. That's all I can do.
It's not funny. It really is not.
Yeah, it's so absurd. And then
It's
my
laughable.
counselor too, she was my counselor was black. She even told me, "You're going to deal with some prejudice being your size and being half Middle Eastern in a white county." And I see myself as just like white. Like my mom raised me like I don't practice anything. I'm Christian. Like I don't. And so like they see you a different way. They see you as this big, scary terrorist, like, bodybuilder. And, they brought magazines out during trial, like showed them like these veiny pictures of me. This guy's addicted to steroids. And then, you work hard for bodybuilding all these years, and then you just get thrown in your face like it's a negative thing. And after this, I got back on my feet fast. I was so driven. Well, I had to get off the stuff first. So I eventually got off all the oxy, and that came to a point, whatever your beliefs are. I mean, I was just like bawling one day, and I was praying to God, whether you believe or God, that's your own thing. But I was like, I need help. Like I've spent money on this and this procedure, nothing's working. And then I keep failing, because you can be literally throwing up and water running out of your ass and on the floor shivering. You take that pill, it's gone. Or if you're injecting it, whatever your method is, it's gone in 30 seconds. You're like normal. And that was the hard part, going through all the physical withdrawals on my end. And when I got through that, like I said, I was in bed about 3 months before I was able to start kind of working again. And then after that, I was like, boom, I got to make this money back. I'm dead broke. And then the first year back, I was so driven. I put all that anger and frustration into working, like coaching, my other business too, and made a lot of money in the first year. And and this is all stuff I prayed about, like hard, I went through all this, God, like give me a break, and so I had and I'm back on my feet now. Life's great. I have my son I love. I'm doing really well in my businesses. I'm just very careful who I'm let in my life, even people that I'm coaching too, because you know how coaching is. If you get too close with the client, it can be a little scary to some people. So
friendly, but not familiar. That's funny. Yeah. That's Woody Allen said that in a movie, but it always stuck in my head. Friendly, but not familiar. You don't want to get too close to people. Yeah. Cross the line.
But till this day, I still deal with, things with my daughter, and it's always something. I'm like, why can't this girl just move on? And
are you like Jimmy the Bull? Are you constantly going to court still, or is it more amicable than that now?
So I haven't been to court since before COVID. We had to do some Skype stuff. But when I go back to court for my daughter, because it's going to be at least, probably, if you hire the right attorney, it's going to be probably at least 30,000-40,000 to get her back in my life and all that. I mean,
how often do you see her now?
This summer I haven't seen her at all.
You don't have visitation rights every other weekend?
So in the summer, so what it went like, so when I've been seeing her at school. When she switched schools, the order changed, and my attorney I was dealing with, we were supposed to go back to trial, but then COVID happened. So he's like, he talked me into some stuff I wasn't really comfortable with. I didn't know that COVID thing was going to last that long. And then so during all that time, when I was getting back on my feet, I got behind in child support like 4 or 5 months. They were trying to put me in jail. I had to come up with all this money, and I lost visitation during that time. So the past year I've been seeing her at school only. So I go every week to see her at school. Sometimes I could go twice a week, every other week. You know, it's just constant nonsense I have to deal with when I go up there. Sometimes my daughter's in a good mood. Sometimes I'm like, what's wrong? I mean, they talk to me and I'm like, I don't have much time with her. And so I just, you know, asked Lesley this, and I'm not trying to like talk about anything with her. I'm just going to just try to be a fun dad while I'm there and having time with her, and not try to talk about anything serious, because she's not going to understand at 8 what's really going on yet. I don't, you know, so when the time's right, hopefully within the next, 6 to 12 months, I'm going to have to go back and fight for her again. And just, I want to be really prepared emotionally and everything before go, because it's a battle. I mean, when you go,
X won't let you. In other words, if you just asked her, "Hey, can I see her this weekend?" She won't let you.
Bro, she's trying to put me in prison for 40 years, Dave.
Well, yeah, but after that was settled, you'd think there would be some sort of.
Dave, you're looking at this with logic.
No,
Some
Dave.
women, you cannot be logical.
Now, can they use that felony conviction against you to say, "Hey, you're a convicted felon. We don't want you near this girl"?
No, because they already the psych test and other tests I had to do proved that I was safe with my daughter. Gotcha. So, okay. She's convinced. I guess people like. I don't know what I think she truly believes all her own lies, like me and Lesley talked about in private, and I let her give her, and she believes and loves this drama that just keeps, going on. And, it's calm right now and I like it. And I need to be ready before I go back to court and, drop another, like I said, 30, 40,000. And
that cop?
What?
Is she still with the police officer? The detective?
I don't know. I asked my daughter one day, I was like, "Hey baby, do you ever see this guy?" And she went home and told her mom, and then she sent me a message on the family talk thing, and she's like, "Hey, please don't ask our daughter about this police officer." And this is funny. She's like, "Please do not tell our daughter you're still in love with me." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh." I told my wife that. She's like, my wife is just as frustrated as me. She's like, "This woman is just like," I'm like, "Love? I don't even have a word for what you are." It's like,
you think she'd be over you by now. You must have done something really good if she really is into you that much.
I don't
Lesley,
know.
what's your whole take on this thing?
I think this
the resolution that is
has a history that whether it was Armon or someone else, she's a loose cannon. And she doesn't live in reality. She can't accept reality. If she could, she would take accountability and be more realistic. But rather than do that, she fabricates this world that she lives in, and she continues to live in. So the problem is that because you guys share a daughter, that creates quite a bit of conflict. But as far as moving forward, Armon, you're doing the right things. I mean, you and I are going to work together. You've got, a good legal team. You've got your wife, which is so important to have social support. Obviously, you have good friends as well. And you've got the number one reason as far as a motivator to continue fighting, regardless of how you're feeling that day, and that's your daughter. Because she's the innocent one that has to pay the price, even though you've paid a huge price financially and emotionally and mentally. You are there to protect your daughter first and foremost. And if you keep that as the center of why you're doing this, which is why you're doing it, it's just sometimes we get so caught up with the emotion, we sometimes forget because we feel very overwhelmed. That can help ground you. And then as needed, go to your social supports and go through like the facts that we were talking about, you know, that you've got your legal team, you've got backup, you've got a lot of facts on your side. You keep copies of everything. So if there's any kind of text messages, voicemails, anything mysterious, you document the heck out of it.
Yeah, fortunately, there's no contact. So we're ordered no contact with each other. So you know, we use that app, and there's no reason to use the app because I'm only seeing her at school. And then when I message her, I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to have Skype calls with my daughter in the summer. And she's like, seek your legal counsel. I call my attorney. He's like, y'all have an order. She has to follow it. And I'm like, well, she's not. She's just like not doing it. He goes, well, you know, we have to file and go back to court again. That'll take about 3 months. And, you know, she'll face the consequences, but it might be 3 months later. And who knows what this judge will even say. I don't have no clue. Of course, I got back on testosterone and my prescription stuff from the doctor. I can't live. That's not healthy. That's like telling a girl to get off birth control or whatever. So, you know, you can't tell a man you have to live unhealthy with low testosterone levels. I don't think this judge understands how unhealthy it is.
Tell them this is what you should say, Armon. You should say, look, I am a biological male who identifies as a female, who identifies as a man, and I need my testosterone. So
I thought about that. I really did.
Then they have to give it to you, right? Because then they're going to violate the wokers, So you don't want to do that.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, Lesley, we talk. We're gonna work together because, like, I never think about my ex, and I love that. That I don't have that in my mind. I'm not like I'm not damaged from this. Of course, things happen in life, and I think they do make you stronger. And since I've been through that, like petty stuff, now I'm just like, whatever. Like if I've learned to deal with my my anger a lot better too. Like with everything. Like on the road, like a year ago, some guy was kept chasing me, cutting me off, and I'm like, I can get out of this car and get shot or beat the guy up and go to jail or stay in the car. Just so, I mean, I'm a lot better and a lot calmer and make a lot better decisions. So I don't know. I just like chalk it up like, okay, I went through this, and what can I do? I can help other people to get, actually talked to one of my friends this morning. He's going through something like this. My other friend, Sean, actually was going through something similar like this. I'm like, go to my attorney, get this. He didn't have the money. He's serving 30 years right now.
Oh my God.
But he got some stuff taxed on it because instead of going through the purpose, he went on the run. And the girl he was dating, I went to high school with her, and she beat herself up and then got her friend to choke her. Because we're all mutual friends, and her friend, we know the friend that did this to her. She called the cops on him, said he got impeding breathing, which is a really bad charge, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. She said something happened with a knife too. And when he was about to go, I was like, dude, come up with $5,000, not my attorney, another attorney in Dallas County. He'll work with you. Just do it. And then he just went on the run, and they caught him with false documents, and he got 30 years. So a lot of guys, if you're in relationships with these women, look at the red flags. I saw the red flags, and, it's my fault that I didn't leave when I should have. You always think like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? And yeah, I mean, it is my fault. I should have left once. There were several times we broke up. I mean, during this time too, I was dating kind of seriously about 4 different girls. I'm not proud of that. That's like something that's not okay. And, you hurt these girls emotionally, breaking up with them, come after you. The ones that aren't okay in the head.
It's a numbers game. You might get 10 people that are normal and just move on, and then one person just decides you're not leaving. Not without a fight, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and if you are in a relationship like that and you need help getting out, contact someone like myself, because I can help you.
Yeah, that's very good advice, because you know what? A lot of times we make all the wrong decisions when we're trying to do something like this, and sometimes you need a third party who's thinking clearly and not emotionally involved to give you good advice. So Lesley is always available.
And it helps if someone's not your friend too. Like, friends help, but they're still your friends. They have opinions. It's good to get someone like Lesley that's just, not in the whole mix and knows you that well, to kind of look it out from an outside perspective, like what's going on. Because the two main things here, like domestic violence, it's not a joke, it's not funny, and there's actual victims out there, and people playing like they're abused, that's sick. Like, people are actually abused and murdered and killed, and I know you're have some knowledge of that, and it's not funny, it's not a joke, and you're trying to ruin someone's life and pin something horrible on them that goes with them. And I'm going to be judged when people run my record. Fortunately, I work for myself and have my own businesses. If not, I'd be in trouble.
Felon, a convicted, violent felon.
Yep.
Which is terrible.
That's how you're looked at, and that's how you're treated until like someone gets to know you. Then they're like, oh, okay, people that haven't been in legal trouble, that thinks like, oh, well, you're a criminal because it's on your record. Wait till your family or you go through something that you got hemmed up for that you didn't do. Or people that thinks addiction's funny, like, oh, you're just an addict, you're just a druggie. Like, wait till it happens to someone in your family or you. When you hurt, you get an injury, you take a few pain pills, then it slowly happens. It's not something someone wakes up and like. I never did drugs in my life. I would take some GHB when I was younger because it was legal till I was 17, and then after that, they used to still sell it. I never did coke in my life. I've never taken an ecstasy pill in my life. I was never into painkillers. They made me sick. And then you take it long enough for what it's used for, and these doctors don't know. They haven't been through the withdrawals. They're not going to explain to you, like you were saying I watched you on the podcast, Dennis's, and like how you're saying these doctors, they don't care. You got to really, look at what you're being prescribed, and is this the right medicine? And if I knew what I knew now, like, I'd rather go through all that physical pain and be crippled before I have to go through those withdrawals again. And I've had so many people message me that like, oh my gosh, I never knew you were struggling with that. I thought you had a good life, an easy life. And I'm like, well, I mean, my life's good now, like, but I went through some struggles, and they're like, that helped me so much hearing that, you have some stuff you're not perfect with. I'm like, I'm just like, everybody has their issues. And they said it helped them a lot hearing someone like talk about it and getting through it and what can they do. And I've helped a lot of people and given them advice, kind of, things I did and helped me to you're going to have to hit rock bottom and come off on your terms, whether it takes 1, 2, or 3 times. And the thing that when I was trying to get off and I went to all like these detoxes, I was the only one there on my own terms. Everybody else, someone did an intervention or that someone was making them go there. I was the only one there on my own terms because I knew I had an issue and I recognized it. Even though it was legal, with legal prescriptions, it was still an addiction. So,
and like I said, when you're going through emotionally damaging things, it's way harder to get off pain meds also because of the emotional withdrawal, which is, I think, what made it hard for you. So I think the people have to have that understanding that, don't try to use drugs or alcohol to cover up emotional pain. You're better off going to someone like Lesley and talking it out and have them be your outlet rather than masking it, because eventually you're going to have to stop the drugs, assuming you don't die. And once you do, all those emotions are going to come right back out. They're just waiting there for you. So you're just delaying it. You're not solving your problems. And so I think if Armon learned anything from that, I think that's one thing you probably learned from this experience. I know I learned it from my experience that I had, which wasn't even close to what you went through, obviously. But, we all have our own little learning experiences. The thing is, don't repeat it, as long as you learn from it and you can then pass that wisdom on to other people and not go back and do the same thing, you're good. Unfortunately, a lot of people who do drugs are recurring drug addicts, and they keep going back to it, and they repeat the same behavior over and over. And unfortunately, a lot of times it winds up in people dying, especially with all the fentanyl that's around now. And it's scary. I forget the statistics, but the statistics are staggering. How many young children, I call them children because if they're under 20 years old, I don't care if you're 18 or 19, that's still a child in my mind. Young children are just dying left and right, from fentanyl overdoses, and not purposely. They don't even realize it. It's scary. It's very scary out there.
It's like my best friend that was with me during. There's about 3 friends that were like by my side this whole time. My friend Alex, he was coming over to. He had a wife and 2 kids staying with me during this time. He died from drug-related complications. About a year after all this happened, and that broke my heart. He was my best friend, and wife, 2 kids, great family, great job. Got into that stuff too. I was preaching to him, hey, let's go through this together. Come to detox with me. He's like, I don't have a problem, dude. I don't have a problem. And then he got a heart infection from dirty usage of. He was doing IV, and then I think I spoke about it. He was supposed to have his an aorta or something, a valve replaced. And he died 2 days before the surgery, just coded. And
yeah, sad when it's things like that are avoidable and then they happen just out of stupidity sometimes. But I want to thank you for joining us and sharing that story with us for 2 weeks in a row. It's almost unbelievable. It's such a crazy story, but obviously well documented, and hopefully people can have a take-home message. Final words, Lesley, on your whole feeling about the story and how it resolved itself.
Women can be crazy, not all women. So if you need help detaching from them, please give me a call.
And on those wise words, Lesley always has the wisest words here. That's why I have her on the show. Those wise words, we're going to wrap up today. I want to thank Armon Adibi for joining us for the past 2 weeks. And if you guys have any questions or for Armon, what's the best way to reach you, Armon?
You can my website, armonadibi.com. I use that more for more business stuff. But my Instagram, you can DM me on there. I don't take messages on TikTok, so my Instagram handle is up right here, and you can message me. And I try to answer all my messages eventually, and
And Lesley, your contact information?
So just DM me on my Instagram. So Lesley T_mental_iron. I'm also now officially on Manect. So I just did a post today about how you can connect with me. So if you just want to do a text message and for me to answer you by text or video, or let's say you want to do a video call, but you don't necessarily have enough for an hour, you can pay me by minute and we can do a video call that way.
I will personally say Lesley is tremendous at what she does. So guys, feel free, and girls, feel free to reach out to Lesley at any point in time. For now, that's it for today. We'll be back again next week with another Iron Therapy. If you have any ideas for future shows, hit me up. I'm always open for suggestions. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.